Hey, welcome to Mike the Baptist. Glad you came back. It's always great when people come back after they've heard this or seen it, and they come back. It's like I'm amazed for one, but I'm always glad for two. I'm glad you guys are back with me at the table. Jason Ricciardi across the table.
What's up?
Good to see you, Jason.
Good to be here.
Always good. Haven't seen you in, it's been about a week, but anyway.
Something like that.
Never mind. It's good to see you today because we're doing a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. It always works good. H.D. Jones is also here today. Nice to see you, H.
Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday to you, too. Someone I ran into a day or two ago, very recently, asked me, are y'all really doing that live? And I said, absolutely, and just walked away.
Yeah.
So
it's live every time.
12:01 a.m. Anyway, it's good to have you here.
Good to be here.
Whatever time it is. Michael Koontz.
Jackson.
Good to see you, Koontz.
Good to see you too, sir.
And everything good in your world, I guess?
Yeah, everything's great.
Tell us about the shirt.
Just another one of my favorite dudes, Mickey Mouse.
No story behind this shirt?
Nah, just he is where I want to be at, down there in some tropical paradise with the palm trees.
Well, just go.
Just living the life.
Just
I
go.
think I will.
You're a preacher. It ain't like you've got a job.
$65 worth of memories right there, baby.
Hey. And we're all smiling about it.
Them ain't cheap there, are they?
Well, Mickey has his standards.
True. Well, we all have ours, too.
I guess so.
So, listen, like I said, it's good to have you there. You, everybody that's listening and or not listening.
I'm surprised you invited us back after the live episode.
You know, the live episode was interesting. I've heard some good comments about it, and it was interesting. It was a nice little venture, and I think we should do it again sometime. But I have an idea. I think we should go set up at a state park somewhere around a campfire, maybe. I sold my motorhome, so I can't do that. That would have been great. We could have just went and done it there. But I think we should go do a live taping at an outdoor venue sometime.
Did you sell all of your motorhomes? Like
motorhomes?
I have an Airstream still, but
you still got the Airstream?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to sell it though. It's going to be for sale soon.
You should do the campfire thing before you sell the Airstream.
We could use the Airstream.
That looks like a campfire.
It
type
does,
thing.
and that would be a good idea, Jason.
Or
Brilliant.
we could just go over to our buddy Keith's. He's got a whole barn, and
our buddy Keith has a fancy barn that you could eat off of the floor.
He could smoke something while we're there.
He could, and he would if we guilted him enough. He would do that. Okay, we'll set that up.
I bet he won't listen to that one at 1.5.
No, I bet he won't either. Cha-ching.
They'd just be wishing in the background that we were talking at 1.5.
Listen, folks, we have a mystery. Not long ago, I think on one of the Preacher's Wives series, I was talking about. They got to talking about movies, and I think they were talking about Beauty and the Beast and Princess Bride and all that, and I got them all confused about which one was which. But someone mailed, well, actually, the Amazon, this brand new DVD of The Princess Bride to me. It just showed up on Amazon, and I've accused everybody I thought of accusing at first. I still believe Koontz might have had something to do with it, just because of looking at it. You wouldn't have sprint the bunny.
No, I come here for the candy. Why do I bring you something?
Got you. Well, anyway, it's a mystery. I'm going to solve it.
As you wish.
What does that mean?
It's a quote from the movie.
Well, see, I've been told that I've seen it, but I don't remember it because when I hear Princess Bride, I think of some monster-looking guy and something. But I had it anyway. They sent me this, and so I'm looking for clues and tips on how to figure out where that came from, because I don't want it to drive me crazy, much as the Denny thing did so many other people.
You're actually still accusing us because you're eyeballing each one of us, and you're trying to look for facial expressions.
I'm looking for
this.
reactions.
Yeah,
you're exactly correct. Anyway, if you feel led to, sorry about that. If you feel like sending some info, do it. Speaking of info, send us an email, comments@mikethebaptist.com. We get a few nice emails now, and I think it's very, very good. But I would like to see some directed emails in the future, just so you know. I'd like to see you ask something to one of the preachers that shows up on here, because I think that would be highly entertaining. So send your questions, and there you go. There's your challenge. Send us your questions specifically for.
We'll decide whether we answer
a preacher. We may not answer it, as always. But
when are you going to put the number out for them to text you at 12:01 a.m. for on-the-spot questions?
We're still working on the technical aspects of that.
All right.
We're getting there. www.mikethebaptist.com. Go on there and look up episodes, buy a mug, buy a T-shirt. someone very close to someone here at this table bought a couple of mugs from me, and they handed the check to someone else, and they handed it to me Sunday morning while I was at my church, and I got home, plopped it out on the table, and it was for way more than the mug. So I just want to say thank you for the gift. The lights are on for a few more days. So thank you. That was very nice. And I'm not mentioning names because I don't want to embarrass anybody, including myself. Too late. Hey, on the front porch today, on a serious topic, on a serious note, I thought it'd be nice to talk about things that the fellows here have seen in their life, their dad do, that was kind or generous or good things that, you know, that they weren't really trying to do for show, but you just saw them doing it and it registered on you. I thought that'd be a nice thing to talk about, a nice thing to discuss. And Jason, let's start with you.
So my dad was a mechanic, and so many years he would have he started out, he had a garage. You know, he started turning wrenches at his dad, my grandpa's shop when he was 8 years old. 8 years old, okay? So he starts turning wrenches at that point in his life. And when he was a young man in his early 20s, he actually owned a garage that was doing very well. And so he started out, it's been a part of my dad's life for the entire time that I knew him, and well before when I was actually born. And one of the things that he did is, you know, when you serve other people, when you're helping other people, you don't have to step into something that you know nothing about. Oftentimes, one of the best ways that you can help other people is by just contributing a gift or a skill that you already have yourself. And so one of the ways that my dad did that is I always saw him not moonlighting, but, you know, shade tree mechanic type stuff. Even though he had his full-time job over here, he was always, people were coming to him asking him questions about a vehicle, and he would go above and beyond when helping. He would stay late, help people all the time. One time, you know, he was a great mechanic. He could tell almost anything just by listening to a vehicle or whatever, and he was bound and determined to figure stuff out. Well, one time he ended up getting some significant stitches on one of his legs because there was a creak in a truck that he was working on. So they took the bed off to try to figure out where it was creaking, and he is riding on the frame going down the road at 30, 40 miles an hour waiting for it to creak, and he was jumping back and forth over the frame, and he slipped one time, and he just sliced his shin up. But he was so excited about figuring out where that sound was coming from that even though it was bleeding through his pants and through his socks and all that stuff, even though he was having that issue, and he obviously needed to go get some significant number of stitches, he's like, "No, I'm fine. I just want to go ahead and let's fix it right now." And they're like, "No, you need to go to the doctor." So anyway, that's my dad. He was always doing stuff like that, going above and beyond when it came to sharing his gift and skills with other people.
So was he known around your hometown for that?
He was known around my hometown as the best mechanic that there was anywhere in the area, and he would treat you fair, and he would treat you as you deserve to be treated. Okay, just a quick story.
Okay.
This is a funny aside. So the first garage that my dad owned, it was in a military-based town. So this was in Killeen, Texas. So Fort Hood is right there. And there was a guy who was a general's aide. And he would come over, and he was just kind of being really demanding, trying to throw his weight around, his position around, and trying to say, you know, the general needs this now, you got to do this. And he was getting so pushy that my dad had had enough of it. He picked up a chair, crossed a 2 or 3 lane road each direction, and he set a chair in the median, and he said, "I'm not going to work on the vehicle until you're out of my shop. You go sit in that chair across the street and I'll work on it. And if you come back over here, I'm not working on it. I'm just going to let you know." And the general actually was so appreciative of my dad fixing the vehicle and so ashamed of the way that his employee was working and treating my dad that he actually got a nice letter from the general saying, "Appreciate you." And the guy actually had to come over and apologize to my dad. It's pretty funny.
That's neat.
Yeah, it's
Your
good
dad
times.
was a small frame man too.
He was not a big man.
The reason I say that is because my grandmother had a brother named Leo, a small fella, and he was known for mechanic. mechanicking, and we would go over there. My granddad, was the used car guy in the area, and we'd take a car over there once in a while. I can remember most of the time when you pull up in Leo's driveway, Leo would be inside the hood of an old truck, sitting up in there with the engine working on it, and he would crawl out there and deal with you. And then you just crawl up in there with him.
It was always fun to watch my dad when he was working on something in the dash, and you don't want to have to pull the whole dash out to work out. Sometimes you can access it through the underside of the dash.
Used to, you could.
And so now there would be times where I would see his feet up in the air going this direction, and his head was down there and kind of tilted like this, and his head was stuck up under the dash, and you just would laugh. And his employees, I mean, he was famous for just being a little guy, and they found a newspaper ad that said small man needed to crawl under houses in tight spaces, and he was the man. He was the service manager. They cut that open, or cut that out of the newspaper and taped it to his door. And I think they must have had a bunch of different copies because it would disappear and somebody would put it back up there. So it was. They always harassed him about that. It was pretty funny.
Quick little story, since you like little stories. My granddad, when sometimes he would work on an old car out there he'd bought, and he'd holler in the house and get myself or my brother when we were young to come out there and sit behind the driver's side, but behind the steering wheel, and start it and stop it. And so he was in there working on a carburetor one day, and he leans around the hood and looks at me. I'm sitting at the wheel, and he says, "When I holler, you start it." I said, "Okay." He goes back in. I guess he poured a little gas in that carburetor to prime it.
Sure.
He leans back. He says, "Okay, start it." And he puts his head back in. I start it, and I hear boom. And he leans back out, and his eyebrows are singed. He said, "Turn it off." Mechanics. I love those mechanic stories.
Yep. Yep.
HD, tell us some stuff that you saw your dad do.
My brain is just having trouble right now because as Jason is telling this story about his dad, it's just flooding my brain with, that's why Jason does these things. We put him in a brand new youth facility this year.
Yes.
Do you know what I heard about for 3 days? This. Listen to this. The noise is going bing, 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 bing. Listen. I'm like, Jason, you're missing the big picture. You have a brand new youth facility. No, listen.
It comes back to fix the problem.
It comes back to you before you, and then sure enough, next thing you know, he fixed the problem. So anyway, you got a little bit of your dad in
It was like a 3-second echo. It was like a 3-second echo. So you'd clap your hands, and it would go for like 3 seconds.
So you needed that fixed, I guess.
Needed that fixed.
And he got it fixed.
And I got it fixed.
Well, good.
Thank goodness.
It's like Jason Day. It's like everybody's aiming across over there.
My dad is really private about what he does by helping other people. I mean, I will promise you, we're very fortunate Dad's still alive, but I'm expecting at his funeral a bunch of people to come by and go, "You don't know what your dad did for me, but because Dad's always very private about that. You could kind of see it along the way. Some guy goes off on a missionary trip to Africa, and Dad gets this big ostrich egg or something back. I'm like, okay, you did something nice for them. But I do remember one time I was a kid, and we were outside, and the preacher pulls up, and he's like, "Ted, I need you to go with me." I guess Dad was a deacon or something. He goes, "I need you to go with me." And so Dad grabbed me, and we all get in the preacher's car and go to a little grocery store, and I got bread and some lunch meats and that kind of stuff. Now, I could take you back to the spot because it's in White House, and we never went to White House back in the day because we were from the Briar, and we didn't go to White House. I think there was only about 1,000 people in White House at that point.
Well, then you need to go there.
There was no need to go there. And but I remember us going to this lady's house, and I got left in the car because I was the kid, But watching those two get out and take that sack of groceries up and helping this family out, and that was kind of cool. I just remember that.
Yeah, those things, I love the way they stay in your mind, and they're there from then on. Time immemorium. Is that how you say that?
Time memoriam?
I'm not sure on that.
Immemorium.
Memoriam, like memory.
So it's not IMM, it's like in memoriam.
Memoriam.
For time, but if you say for time immemorium,
Not Imodium.
memoriam,
In memoriam.
time in memoriam. Well, I guess in Arkansas we condensed everything. Time memoriam.
There you go.
Speaking of time memoriam, Koontz, can you tell us things that happened with your father?
Yeah, so 2 things come to mind. And Did we break something already?
No, it's still going. Sorry. I just changed my view there.
That's
What?
awesome.
All right, so yeah, 2 things for Dad. The first is Dad. I always remember him tithing, and I can remember watching my dad turn in his tithe envelope every single Sunday. So 52 weeks out of the year, that has always had such a huge impression upon me. Teaching us and the importance of that. But the thing that I didn't see until later in life, what you alluded to with your dad. My dad was an extremely generous man with people. Now, I always thought Dad was a tightwad, and he, we didn't have a lot, but he was tight with money. But then I found out later in life how generous my father was, because at his funeral, I had person after person and family member after family member coming to me and telling me about the times, not just once, the times that he helped them, paying for funerals, paying for food, paying for house repairs, car it was incredible. I was absolutely blown away, and I'll never forget that. Just to think about the type of a man that Dad was, and we had no clue about it, because we would after the funeral, I can remember sitting down with Mom and we were talking about those things, and she's like, most of those I had no clue about either, because he was such a private man.
Wow, really?
But behind the scenes, and it's a very biblical principle, you do these things, you just do it because it's the right thing to do. And man, here he is, Dad's gone. I'm like, he's teaching me amazing life lessons on generosity.
When you tithe, do you often think of that?
Oh yeah. I'll always think about Dad when I tithe, because he was the one that taught me that first.
Interesting. I always think about my grandma when I chewed double mint gum, because that's what I smell taking a nap in her lap in them old country churches in the summer. When you're laying down low, you smell that. But that's,
yeah.
Sorry about that. That just came out of nowhere.
Okay.
But
That's kind of cool though, because your dad, what appeared to be being a tightwad, is he was creating margin so that he could be
exactly
generous.
right. Yeah.
It's just, that is a really biblical thing.
Well, when after he died, he had his safe that was down in his office. But we started going through the safe, and envelope after envelope after envelope, and every one of these envelopes had cash in them, and they were all labeled for different things. And I'm like, he just had all these margins built into his life, and he was just very dedicated, and he lived by it, and he was always prepared. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for the life lesson. That was incredible.
what was your dad's name?
Kenneth Koontz.
Kenneth Koontz. Jason, what was your dad's name?
Dave Ricciardi.
HD?
Ted Jones.
Ted Jones.
Ted Jones.
That's American right there.
Right there.
My granddad was my dad, Osher Ishmael Blackwood.
Say that again.
Osher, Osher, Ishmael, just like it sounds, Blackwood. Isn't that interesting?
Very much
I think
so.
both of those names are in the Bible, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's where they came from.
That could be an Inny or Outty.
Oh, Osher could be. We'll address that here in a while.
Is Osher in the Bible?
I think it was. Well, we'll know here pretty soon.
Today on Michael
there's
Baptist.
a Goshen.
Isn't that interesting, though, in the hills of, well, actually, was he born in Arkansas or was he born in Waynes County, Tennessee? His family came from southern Tennessee, Waynes County. And I can't remember. No, I think he was born in Arkansas. But isn't it interesting in the old country, whether it was down there or in Arkansas, that those people came up with that name, Osher Ishmael? Isn't that interesting? Anyway, Koontz, well, I'm gathering from you and you. I'm gathering from everybody. These guys that did things without wanting to be noticed because they weren't doing them to be noticed. That's my granddad was the same way. He carried around. He shouldn't have, but he always carried around a big wad of $100 bills somewhere because if he ran into an old used car, that's what he did for a living. He was ready to buy it. But he'd slice those hundreds out once in a while and give them to people, and very, very nonchalant, give them to them. But so like when he passed away, when my grandmother passed away, she'd been gone for a couple of years. He calls me up. He wanted me to come out. I've told this before. I'm gonna tell again. We're old enough to forget things, but he called me to come out and spend a little time with him and get rid of all the old car paperwork because she took care of the books. He didn't take care of the books. So we sat at his house one night and went through page by page of all the old records of the car thing. And one by one, we threw in the wood-burning stove there in his living room these pages where someone had bought an old car from him, and he set it up on payments. And they still owed him $400 from 30 years ago. She kept all that. He just wanted to burn. So $20,000, $30,000 worth of stuff that was owed to him, we burned up that night, and he sayonara goodbye, didn't care. Just want to get rid of it. But so like at his funeral, I heard these things over and over that he had done that I didn't know about, but he, so many people he had done stuff like that for. And it sticks in your craw, doesn't it? It makes you really feel like a heel at some point, doesn't it? Like I have some, pretty big shoes to step into. But good front porch talk right here. Heard some good things. Did anybody think of something they wanted to throw out there before we move on? Good. Me too. I'm choking up. I don't want to do that on film, so we'll take a break, come back, talk about some stuff we found in the Bible. It's storming outside. I don't know if that's a sign of anything, but we'll see.
This episode of Mike the Baptist is being presented commercial-free for your enjoyment by Michael Jackson, licensed realtor in Middle Tennessee. Rather than have you bombarded by pleas to buy things, Michael Jackson, the realtor, wanted to sponsor today's program and allow you to simply enjoy the content rather than worry about somebody trying to sell you stuff. Oh sure, Michael Jackson, realtor, might help people buy and sell houses and land in Middle Tennessee, but he doesn't actually sell things directly. So technically, this is not a commercial to sell you anything at all. It's simply an announcement to you that you don't have to listen to commercials on this episode because Michael Jackson, the realtor with Finch Real Estate in White House, Tennessee, 615-957-5064, is sponsoring this commercial-free program. This in no way, of course, means that if you're wanting to shop for a house or sell one or some land, that you shouldn't contact Michael Jackson, the realtor, because you should. He's fair, he's helpful, knowledgeable about the real estate market, and he's fun to work with. Okay, I'm Michael Jackson, the realtor, Finch Real Estate. And this is a commercial because my work as a real estate agent helps me have the time and resources to produce these Mike the Baptist programs. So feel free to call me for any of your real estate needs. I'll help you out all I can, and I'll do my best to make buying and selling your house a good experience. 615-957-5064. I'm number 2. Everybody else claims to be number 1.
Hey, we're back, and not going to go on and on about the Bible. I always try to before we talk about the Bible. I like to talk about it, but I'm not going to go on and on about it other than to say it's a fascinating read. And if you haven't read it much, if you're maybe accidentally listening to us or watching us, you haven't read it much, read it. And I would advise you, if you're in that category or you haven't read it a lot, don't pay a lot of attention to all that genealogy and stuff right now. Find a line in there that speaks to you and then go sit down somewhere and think about that for a while. I mean, that's what people do that do read it all the time too, I think. It's healthy. You guys take it over now and talk about real stuff.
Well, the Bible is just a phenomenal book. It's written by so many different authors over so many different centuries, over so many, even more than centuries, millennia, and over 3 different continents. I mean, it's amazing. And it's amazing that the continuity that you have from Genesis to Revelation. Even though there's 66 different books in the Protestant Bible, there's 66 different books. They all have the same message. And we see this even between what they call the Old Testament and New Testament. The Bible is kind of divided into sections. The first big chunk of the Bible is about 2/3 of the Bible. It's called the Old Testament. And then the next 1/3 of the Bible is called the New Testament. And even between the first book of the Old Testament and the first book of the New Testament, there's this continuity that we see there. And in Genesis 1, it's a famous passage of Scripture. Everybody knows it. It's in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Everybody kind of knows that start to it. And then if you read the rest of that chapter, it talks about all the different ways that God created. And then in John 1 through 5, it's the fourth gospel. in the New Testament. It's the fourth book. And so you got Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is the last one. Well, John intentionally sets up the start of his gospel to look exactly like, or to be reminiscent of, the start of the Bible itself. And in Genesis 1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And in John 1 through 5, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. The Word was God. And it goes on to say that in him was life, and that life was the light of man. The light shines into the darkness, but the darkness has not overcome it. And so you have all these different comparisons in there between God in Genesis 1 and Jesus in John 1. And so we see all these similarities. It's John's kind of literary way of saying that Jesus is God. But not only is it just saying that Jesus is God, it says that we see that he's eternal. And in John 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word. So there was a beginning, and Jesus was actually there before the beginning. He was there even from the very beginning. There wasn't a time period where he was not. If there was time, Jesus was there. So Jesus is eternal. He was there from the very beginning. And not only was he there with God, John is specific to say that he was God himself. So we see in the very least a mention of two different of the Trinity, two different persons of the Trinity. We see God the Father, and we see Jesus, his Son, was right there from the very beginning. So that's some of the stuff that we see. We see that Jesus was creator. We see that he was life. We see he was light. But a really cool thing is in John 1:5, it depends on how you kind of understand this word, but some translations will say the darkness has not overcome it, the darkness has not grasped it, the darkness has not understood it. And they all kind of have that same underlying foundation that Jesus is light and there's darkness, and he's going to win over darkness. He's going to shine into the darkness, he's going to pierce the darkness, he's going to destroy the darkness, and he's going to bring life. And so that kind of makes us think, when you got the comparison between this is Jesus in the New Testament, he's God, this is God in the Old Testament, he's creator, they're the same, they're one. What are some of the ways that he brings light to darkness? Not just in a physical sense, but in a spiritual sense. What are some of the ways you guys see that happen in life?
Well, one is through us. He has called us to bring his light, to be the salt of the earth, be light in darkness. And so he wants to use us to take the truths that he has recorded for us in his word throughout the Bible, and to take that out there into that world. Because we know this world, and we can look at the news and see just how much darkness is in our world today. There's so many bad things that are going on around us, and God wants to use us to help bring that light into those areas and try to get us to hold on until he comes back. I'm not going to share names because I don't want to embarrass whomever this is, but I was staying late at the church, and I was minutes from walking out the door. In fact, I was in the middle of packing up my things to walk out the door, and I got a phone call saying, hey, I'm bringing somebody over here. Would you be willing and able to meet with them? And so I was already there late, and I was minutes from walking out the door where I could have said, well, I'm no longer there. And then this guy comes, and we're able to talk with him for an hour and a half or something, and it was a bad day. It's not a good day. And he was talking about how this was happening in his life, and his life was just falling apart. And then I got a chance to see that guy at church not long after. And I'm not saying that everything's perfect, but God is shining a light in a dark place, and he's beginning to pierce the darkness, pierce the hold that Satan had on this guy's life, and things are just starting to come back together for him. And it is a beautiful thing when Jesus does that. It really is. And Jesus is the thing that made the difference. It's not any of his efforts that made any difference at all. Jesus is the thing that made the difference. And it's so cool.
I forget where I heard this the first time, but the reality that there is no such thing as darkness. There's only an absence of a light.
Einstein.
And that's just a really cool thought to think about. What we experience is really just an absence of God's glory and presence in our world. And so every place that he goes with us into this world, it's better. Mm-hmm. It's a better place. And I know that's hard for us to even understand sometimes, because I don't know about you, but sometimes even as a Christian, we have bad days. And sometimes we even cry out, God, where were you in this situation or that situation? But God is always there with us and walking with us. And if you'll look for that opportunity, just like Jason said, I'm ready to go home. I'm tired. It's been a long day. But if you're just open to that opportunity, God will give you that opportunity to kind of pour into somebody else. And then when you walk away from that, it did cost you something, but there's a lot of joy because you got to be a part of light. If you didn't do that, then you were just part of the darkness, so to speak.
So I wonder if God set this up so that you could be a part of the deal. You wonder sometimes, if God saves me, why didn't he just take me out?
Right.
Get me out of this.
Right.
So there's obviously a reason. If you think about this at all, there's obviously a reason you're still here. I wonder if that's just part of the deal, is that you have
your
an
journey,
opportunity.
Your mission's not done yet. That's what I say all the time. Because like you said, once we're saved, best place for us to be is in heaven, in our way of thinking. But God's saying, nope, I still got a mission here for you.
But it's a privilege to have that.
And that's just it.
Isn't it?
It is a privilege for us. And and we're missing out on the privilege so often because, Jason could have said, nope, I'm tired, I'm going home.
Right.
But these privileges, they're a short-term thing for us. Because one day we're going to leave this earth, and those opportunities to share the love of God with people who are lost are going to be over for us. If we get 60, 80, or 100 years to do that, that's not much time. Because eternity is a whole lot longer than that. And then we're going to step into an eternity, and as we get into Revelation towards the end of the book, we find out outer darkness, I think is how it's talked about, where the presence of God will not be for all of eternity, and all those folks who have not trusted in Jesus, that's where they're going to be at, in a place with absolutely no presence of God. And that's scary for us to even think about that.
It's a little scary.
Should be scary anyway. Yeah.
We talked about in our front porch visit, our dads, and just being able to see them and what they did and how that influenced us. And I don't know about you guys, but especially when I was a little guy, I wanted to make my dad happy. Mm-hmm. And if he gave me a task to do, and it could have been a menial task, sweep out the shop. Boy, I was sweeping out that shop, because I wanted my dad to be proud of me.
That's right.
But what a good feeling that is when your dad's like, boy, that's a good job. Let's go get some ice cream. Let's go. I remember one time as a kid, we probably only had one 5 and 10 dime store in Greenbrier. And I remember my dad took me out there and bought me, it was called Big Jim. I didn't have G.I. Joe's, but I had Big Jim because they had it at the Franklin 5 and dime there in Greenbrier. But, that was just a good memory, because I had done something correctly for him or whatever. And he was just, so yeah, I think God is honoring us by giving us these opportunities to be light in a dark world. And it's not always easy. Gosh, I just heard a conference today, and the guy was talking about how church is set up for hypocrisy, because we come in and we want to look like we got it all together, and really we're just a bunch of broken people that are hurting.
Yep.
And our responsibility is to love on these other hurting people. And when we do it correctly, there's a lot of joy in it, even though it's a lot of work. It's like, I don't know about you guys, but man, summertime, that first tomato, there's nothing better than just a good ripe tomato on bologna or bacon, but there's a lot of work that went in to get to that, but when you get that joy from that, there's a lot of good feeling in that too.
All right. 2 things. The first thing, how did that fruit become so good? There was a lot of crap that had to...
Compost, Jason, compost.
Hey, you call it what you want. You call it what you want. Manure is crap. There was a lot of stuff that had to happen for that fruit to come about and
True.
to be not just fruit that's there, but fruit that's good.
True.
And there's that. And then as you were talking about this, I was thinking, how pleased you were when your dad took you. I was just thinking, flip that, how pleased your dad was with you.
Yeah.
Man, just...
Yep.
Yeah.
You get the blessing of, your dad bestows these gifts on you because you've been good. But man, I was just thinking the other day, my daughter, I asked her to come out and help. I cut off tree limbs, big tree limbs. Just you could see the whole side of the tree is dying, and once you cut it open, you're like, oh my gosh, there's termites all up in this tree. So we're probably gonna have to cut it down before too long. But after I did all the work of cutting the big stuff down and getting the big chunks out of the way, I needed to mow, and there were still a bunch of sticks laying around. And so I asked my daughter after we had gone out and worked out together, I said, Karis, I could use a little help right outside. And she went out there and without hesitation, without complaints, and just worked hard and really helped clear the ground. How pleased I was with her.
Yeah. And
I gave her a reward for that. That it wasn't a wage. It was a reward.
Two lima beans, not just one for dinner. She got 2 lima beans.
Yeah.
A reward is a reward.
Little Timmy got 2 pieces of coal in his stocking. But the blessing that I had to see my daughter exercise and grow up and display what I want her to be and what I want her to do. Man, there was so much joy as a parent in that moment.
Good feeling.
It is a good feeling. And I wonder if that's not maybe some of the way that God sometimes feels about us when we...
You have to think that, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're supposedly created in His image somehow, it's obviously not a physical image. I mean, obviously. Looking across the table,
Then
and
some
at
of
my
us would look
monitors,
more like God than others, right? Yeah.
we would look. Yeah, it would be a kind of a variety, but yeah, you have to think it's in maybe the way he thinks, feels, et cetera, et cetera. Interesting. My grandson said one time years ago when he was 5 or 6 years old that he was just going to be bad all year, so that Santa would give him a whole bunch of free coal for Christmas.
Pretty cool.
So that's a good twist on that.
But that we've been reading through the book of John, and that's one of John's main things is he wants us to understand that Jesus is God, that there's that oneness there's that unity within the Trinity. Mark's gospel really more focused on the servanthood of Christ. Matthew's gospel is really more about how Jesus is the King. Luke's gospel is more how he's the Son of Man. And so this gospel really focuses on about him being the Son of God and how he's unique and how he and God have this special relationship. But with that uniqueness, there's some important things that we need to understand about Jesus. He says he doesn't do anything without, asking the Father. And so, as we've talked about these sons and dad relationships, there is a uniqueness there when you're doing what the Father asks you to do. The Father's happy with you. You're happy with the Father. So why do you think it's important that we talk about God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit? And why is that important for us to think about this oneness of the Godhead?
I love it when
That's
I'll edit that out, but
no, that's a deep question. I think understanding the Trinity, part of the benefit that we have, it's the Trinity is bigger than my brain for sure, but part of the benefit of having the Trinity is we get to experience and understand God in the full spectrum of who He is. There's a God that leads. There's a Son that obeys. There's a Spirit that comforts. And so we get to experience a fuller picture of who God is and how He wants to live in His believers than we would if it was just a solitary single, there wasn't a Trinity. There weren't 3 persons of the Trinity. If there was just one God and there were no other persons in the Trinity. I think we get to see a fuller picture of that.
So if He was just out there somewhere,
yeah,
you'd always wonder.
If He was just God the Father, if we had a broken relationship with our Father, we would only have a broken picture of God.
Right.
If it was just God and He was our brother in essence, and it's just Jesus, and we wouldn't necessarily have the respect for Him that we should. And if it was just God, the comforter, we would kind of be wishy-washy, and we would just revel in our brokenness so that we could experience Him. But it's not just that; it's everything. We get to see a picture of God in every way that He intends us to see Him.
Hang on, I'm writing down comforter. Comforter. That's a good word.
You know, I also think with that, by him being Father, Son, and the Spirit for us, it puts it on that realm of, you know, we really cannot understand all that. We cannot understand our God. He is so great. You know, I can understand my Father. My Father, I can understand. He was a physical being that was here with me. I can understand that. And if that's all God was just the Father, I'd have him figured out, I would think. But he is so much more than that. I mean, he is all three in one. And that's one of the things I love about Vacation Bible School a few years ago. That was one of the songs, 3 in 1, you know, talking about the Trinity. And it's like, yeah, I can sing about it. Yeah, I can talk about it, but I still can't understand all of that.
You know, it kind of blew my mind several years ago. I remember reading a book about, I mean, very plainly says in the Bible, no one has seen God. No one. Jesus says, you know, nobody has seen him but me, but I'm his representative to you. So when you've seen me, you've seen the Father. So then when you start thinking back to, Jason alluded to earlier, this idea of the Old Testament and New Testament, I think sometimes we have this idea that the God of the Old Testament's kind of the grandfather, old guy with a beard, and he created this earth. But then we have these stories about the burning bush, and God talked to Moses. Well, what if that's God the Son? Not God the Father, but God the Son. Abraham had an encounter with the angel of the Lord, but what if that's God the Son? You know, there's a big word there, Christophanies.
Christophany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a big word there that I can't say, and so that's the reason I take Jason along with me, because he's a comfortable water.
Because I obviously get all of my words right all the time.
But just say it with confidence.
But it's just this again, this reminder. What John is trying to get into our spirit, because he says, "I've written these things so that you might believe in Him, and in His name you have eternal life." He's trying to get us to understand who Jesus is. By writing the Gospel of John, but he is also trying to help us to understand that God is bigger than what we think we can figure out, but he's so personable too. You know, John's like, we've seen the glory of God. You know, we walked with him, we've experienced it, we've been an eyewitness to this, and so I think that's comforting to know that Jesus put on flesh and dwelt among us, that he understands what it means to have a bad day. He understands what it means when brothers and sisters talk bad about you. He understands when friends walk away from you. He understands those things. It helps me when I think about what does God know about me. Because again, we can feel sometimes like he's so distant, and yet Jesus experienced life in a very similar way that we do. Obviously without sin, but he understands what it means to be human.
Well, the whole Trinity thing, I mean, people will be trying to talk about that and understand that for time in memoriam or whatever, because you can't. I don't remember which one of you. I think both of you guys said you can't understand. Can't understand that, but I don't know. It's like if God was just God, way out there somewhere, I would always wonder. I'd always have this: should I be afraid of him? What should I think? But then, so Jesus shows up in physical form, so I have something to relate to right there. Mm-hmm. You know, I can relate to that. But there's still this thing in the middle there. This is how I kind of picture the Trinity in my own crazy thinking. So I've got God way out there, but now I'm seeing him show up here in human form, but there's still something kind of between them that doesn't make exact sense. But then the Spirit shows up. So to me, that's just like, it helps me understand that where God is and how he can be right here, but he can also be over there, or he can be in you and you and you. It helps me understand that. The physical showed up, I think, so we could have something physical to relate to. The Spirit shows up so we can, I think, connect. And it's a connection. To me, that's how we're all connected here at this table. I mean, if you think about, I've said it before about when people die. I say it all the time that at the end of your life, the only thing you ever really had that you could say that was mine is your relationship with somebody. That was yours. But it wasn't their physical body, because people I know that have died, they're just as alive in my head right now as they ever were. So I connect all those things to, that's what the Spirit is. in this whole Trinity thing. The other two is the one way out there that you can't even explain. Jesus shows up. He's like me, walking around. And then there's this thing in the middle, to me, that kind of seams it all together in a way. And I guess that's what he said, that that's what that's going to be there for, isn't it? So you'll know. So it'll guide you and help you, and you don't understand it, but it's going to kind of show up in your head there. And
yeah, Jesus talks about the disciples would be more blessed as he left because the Spirit would come, and actually they would be able to do more in their ministry than he had been able to do in his own ministry.
Because when he was there, they were hanging on to him.
And so that's a comforting thought. I do want to point out, we're not talking about modalism where God puts on his earthly or his heavenly Father clothes, and then he takes off those clothes and he puts on his your friend that walks on the earth with you clothes, and then I take those clothes off. Now I'm a spirit that just floats around. It literally is the 3 in 1. It is the Godhead. And part of that's unexplainable in our mind. Again, it's not a faith that requires you just to check your brain at the door and be ignorant, but it is a faith that says, even though I can't fully wrap my mind around it, there's something about it that makes sense. Like you said, there's something about it that just kind of resonates with me. And I think even when we get to heaven one day, I don't think we're going to go, oh, okay, got this. This goes in this box, and this goes in this box, and this goes in this box. I think every day we wake up, we're going to realize how complex our God is, how big he is, and yet how personable he is and how small he is in some ways, because he wants to relate to us, which really should kind of blow our mind. Again, created in his image, but then when he put on flesh and dwelt among us, he did something so unique, because we're going to be like him. We're not going to be gods, but we'll be like Jesus, and he'll be like us for all eternity. It changed not only our eternity, it changed his. He went from being a spirit to being a physical being with flesh and blood and bones, and that's what we're going to be forever in heaven. So the mountains will bow down, the planets will bow down, the angels will bow down, the demons will bow down, but only in you and I will bow down in a way that says, "That's my boy right there. Mm-hmm. That's my peep. He's part of me, and I'm part of him. We're of the same essence, kind of, sort of speak."
Can I make a quick aside? This is a little bit different direction than where we're going with this, but you said a phrase that I always try to throw this in there when we start talking about the Trinity. We are not called as Christians to check our brains at the door of faith. Like, literally, we're not supposed to do that. And I want to use an example real quickly to kind of show. A lot of times people will look at the Trinity and say, well, that's just nonsensical. It doesn't make sense. Why are you doing that? There's no way it can be both this and that. Well, what is the oftentimes set up as the foil of faith? Like, what's the exact opposite of faith most of the time? What do we call it? Science, right? Science is often set up as the foil of faith, the foe of faith. Well, in science, there's something in considering light. Is it a wavelength or is it a particle? And scientists can't even answer that question. There are times we experience light and we're like, oh yeah, I understand exactly what light is. But then when you start getting into the nitty gritty of it, scientists don't know whether it's a light wavelength or a light particle. And sometimes it's more helpful to see light as a wavelength. Sometimes it's more helpful to see it as a particle, but they can't even agree and understand which one it is. Sometimes the math works better this way. Sometimes the math works better this way. And they'll actually say it's not just one or the other, it's both. Mm. And they're okay with that inconsistency. You're like, it's got to be one or the other. It can't be both. But they're okay with that. They're okay with that tension that's there. So even in science, which is often set up as an opposition to faith, they're okay with things like that. And we're not asking people to do anything that they're not already doing. When it comes to faith, there's just an element of it you're not fully going to be able to understand. Is God one? Yes. Is God the Trinity? Yes. Well, it has to be one or the other. Well, I mean, we do this in science. It's just the way it is. There are some things that are so much bigger than what we can comprehend and understand. And so we're not asking you to do something in faith that you're not willing to do in other parts of your life.
Do you realize the smartest human beings that have ever lived only know what somebody else knew? I mean, like there's a bunch of stuff they didn't know. They seemed smart because they knew more than maybe we did, but they didn't know everything. That's kind of comforting. You know, I see this as like if you haven't seen a movie like The Princess Bride or some movie.
By the way, who sent that to you?
I don't know. But like I was thinking a little bit ago, if you haven't seen a movie, but it's something you want to see, you know, it sounds interesting to you, what you've heard about it, and you want to see it. And you've always got this kind of anticipation, and you're okay with that anticipation. It's kind of exciting in a way. But if somebody comes along and they said, yeah, I saw that, and then they tell you all about it, it's like, I still might want to see it, but I'm not going to have as much of an urgency anymore. You know, it's kind of like, well, I don't have to see it now. I kind of know what happens.
I have to go long enough to forget what you just told me. Spoiler alert. Yes. Thanks.
Well, see, look, like, could it be that God set this up so we'll never know exactly the answer to some of these things? Because if we did, I mean, we might just kind of get a little complacent and just like, that's not as exciting as it used to be because I already know. Okay, that's not a great example, but
that's good though because
thank you. Thanks, Koontz, for bailing me out. You swooped in.
That's all I got to say.
Thanks for the swoop.
No. But you know, we started off talking about Genesis to Revelation. Throughout the entire Bible that God has given to us, there's this theme that goes throughout it, and God has given us the plan for how to live for Him, how to live a godly life, and to bring all of this stuff together. And He wants that for us. In 2 Peter, the first chapter, he lists a lot of words here for us: faith and goodness and knowledge and self-control, endurance, godliness, brotherly love, and he ends with love there. So He's given us throughout His entire Word, the collection of the Bible, what's it take for us to live for Him, basically. And by living for Him, when we do that, we're going to live the best life that we can, because it's according to His instruction and it's according to His book of how He has designed us to be. Doesn't mean it's always going to be easy, because we know people are going to go hungry. We know people are going to get sick. We know we're ultimately going to have death. But it's going to be good if we know Jesus as our Savior and Lord. If we know Jesus as our Savior, doesn't matter what happens to us, everything's good, because we got all of eternity and it's all going to be okay. But throughout His Word, He gives us all of that instruction. My question is, why do we fail, or what keeps us from doing those things, of living for Him? What gets in the way of us having this faith, or this goodness, or this endurance, this brotherly affection, ultimately having this love for each other or our communities? Preach, brother.
This is messed up, and this is messed up.
Jason is pointing at his head and his heart.
There's something called the total depravity. Okay, go ahead and buzz me. Total depravity, and it's a theological term that means not that we are as messed up and as evil as we can possibly be, but there's a theological term that means every single aspect of who we are is marked with the stain of sin. So I am messed up, and I don't live for God because the way I think about sin is messed up. The way I think about others is messed up. The way I think about myself is messed up. I am messed up, and I don't live for God the way that I'm supposed to, because the way I feel about myself, about others, about God is messed up. And it flows into every single aspect of who I am. And so at our core, humans are incredibly selfish.
There you go. That's exactly the word that I always come back to. It's selfishness.
And one of the things in modern day marketing that just flat drives me nuts is when you watch a commercial and it says, and the sales pitch is something along the lines of, "You deserve this." And that just,
Yeah.
it really makes my skin crawl, because I guess I'm just far enough down the line in my faith that I see things through more of a biblical lens than I used to, and I don't deserve anything. It is merely the blessing of God that has given me anything. And man, as great as my wife is, I don't always treat her the way that she should. As much as I love my kids, I don't always treat them as much the way that I should. And those are the two groups of people that I love the most in my entire life.
Yeah, because one kid had to pick up limbs. I'm like, where's the other kid? You're playing favorites.
Basically, yeah. I won't tell you which one.
He had the other one changing oil on his truck.
Yeah.
And if I can't even treat those people that I love the most well, there's no way that other people that I don't know are going to get treatment the way that God wants them to.
The whole deserve thing was just an advertising ploy. Years ago, they figured out that if they said you deserve,
it hits
break,
a nerve for people.
It's in the
I've worked
books.
hard. I deserve this.
It's in the books about how you convince somebody to buy a product.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'll go back to, I think Mr. Jackson here has a way of trying to get us to be nostalgic. But part of our front porch visits is just this reminder of things that have happened in our past, and a lot of it's family oriented. And I'll say again, people have asked me this: what do you think heaven's going to be like? I go back to a simpler time in my life, and I know it's going to be much grander than this, but it was a simple time in my life where I didn't worry about the electricity bill. I didn't worry about somebody breaking in my house because my daddy would protect us.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't worry about what was going to be for dinner. I was outside playing cops and robbers, and I remember we'd take a piece of rope and we put out over the yard and we covered it up with leaves, and then we set this fake bag of money out there. And when people would kids would run after the bag, you'd pull the rope and trip them up, and we'd get arrested them and everything. But I mean, we were just throwing walnuts at each other and having fun and swinging on grapevines and jumping in the creek. And you know what? We weren't worried about anything. I wasn't worried about somebody shooting me at school. I wasn't worried about we're going to get kicked out of our house. And you just went and did stuff. And when the whistle blew or the bell rang or whatever it was, Mom got you to come to the house. You came to the house, you washed up, you ate dinner, you went back outside and played again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, there's some great parts of being an adult. Let's just be honest. Adulting can be cool.
There's some parts that suck too, though.
But there's some parts.
I'm just going to say.
There's some parts, man. There's some parts that just really, yeah.
Is there a better word?
Yeah, yeah.
No.
They just
Thank you.
stink. They just stink. It's like the more responsibility you have, the more disappointment is there, the more you feel like it's all under your pressure to make it happen. As a kid, I mean, you poop in your pants and laugh about it. And, you get to be my age, if you poop in your pants, you're all embarrassed about it. But what is our relationship with God supposed to be like? It's supposed to be kind of carefree.
Like he's got it.
He's got this.
Yeah.
Look, the original 10 laws. Just do these 10 things. I've saved you. You're my people. Just do these things and we'll be good. But why don't we?
Yeah.
Because there's this thing inside of us called pride, called sin, where we want to tell God, I want this, I want it now. This is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. This is who I want to be. And we find ourselves in the middle of a mess. We really just find ourselves in a mess.
You just mentioned something that made me think. That's on the one side of the spectrum where we don't even try to do things that are good. But those 10 laws that you just mentioned, they at some point in time, there became a kind of almost codified set of laws that they had in addition to that they considered like a hedge of protection around the 10 laws. And it's like 513, I think I'm getting that number right, 513 laws that they put around the 10 Commandments so that people wouldn't even come close to approaching breaking the 10 Commandments. And people got to the point where they thought, I can live this life so well that I'm never breaking the 10 Commandments. God's really got to love me. And that's just as bad. Mm-hmm. It's just bad on the other side of the spectrum. We think that we can do things and accomplish God's will without actually approaching God.
Here's an encouraging word for the for the folks who are not soaked in this, as I like to say, who might have stumbled upon this and are listening to this talk here. At the table here are four guys who have been soaking themselves in this whole religion thing for a number of years. And you're hearing all four of these guys at some point at this table say, I still don't have this figured out. I still am not right. The difference is in being where we are right now and where you might not be if you're listening to this, is that we have somewhere to take all that crap. And
The word of the day is
yes, thank you so much. I'm on a roll. But we have somewhere to take that off our shoulder and help us understand that that's part of being a human being. It's not going to go away. It's in there because it's part of being a human being. But the difference is we have somewhere to hang that up and a way to understand it where it's not going to eat us alive, because we know eventually we win. Mm-hmm. That's the difference. So I don't know. I just think it's worth trying if you haven't, because if nothing else, because of that. If you go to a funeral and the person you don't believe was a saved, quote, saved individual, or their family, there's such a different feeling there.
Mm-hmm. No hope.
There's no hope, and everybody seems to be grasping at something. They're grasping at a clip of a rock and roll song that was somebody's favorite, or they're grasping at some kind of a memory, or just little things like that. And the memories are fine, all of that stuff's fine, but you can just tell that there's this thing that's missing, and it's like when they leave the building that day, it's kind of over. Mm-hmm. When you go to the funeral or even a visitation of a Christian person and all their Christian family and all these people are there, there's this lightness that's in a stark contrast to the other scene. Yeah. And the reason is they got somewhere to put all that. There's somewhere to hang that and a way to understand it where it doesn't just totally eat you alive and you can't even function. I encourage you to try that route. If nothing else right now, just because you need some relief. You'll get it. I know you'll get it. You won't get it immediately. You may be a little bit soured about your purchase for a week or two until it starts kind of dawning on you what's going on here, and then you'll start changing. You'll just start changing. Something will change inside you, and a lot of that'll be off your shoulders, so to speak. Is that correct?
Yeah, Jackson, this past Friday, I did a funeral for a lady who was our music director at a church I pastored years ago. And I call it a funeral because that's what we typically say, but it was truly a celebration of life. Mm-hmm. Because there was so much joy and good memories and just relief because we know where she's at now, because she has trusted in Jesus as her Savior. And one of the requests from her children was that we made sure that we present the gospel and do an invitation during that celebration of life service, and we did that. And it is like you said, so much different than when you have to do a true funeral for somebody that you don't know they ever trusted Christ as Savior, because there's no joy there, because we're thinking about they might be eternally separated from a loving God. And we don't want anybody to go through that.
Nope.
We want them to experience Jesus that we've experienced.
Yep, easy to do.
That's right.
And it is all about the relationship. Maybe everybody listening to our program, I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of people listening
absolutely
to our insanity. But, the four of us, we were fortunate to have good dads. And not everybody's had a good dad. But there is a good father.
That's right.
That loves you. And I can just say, I'm glad I had a good dad, have a good dad, because he modeled that by giving to other people, and by I got my tail whipped when I wasn't, and even when our relationship was rocky sometimes, I never felt unloved. I might have felt you didn't hear me, you don't understand me, you don't know what I'm going through, but I never felt unloved. I never felt like that, even when I disappointed him, or I felt like he disappointed me. I never felt like my key wouldn't work in the lock, or I didn't have a bed to lay down in, or I wasn't welcome at the table. And that's kind of what our relationship is with God. We're always welcome in his family. Now, it's got to be his way, not my way. It's got to be his way. And that's what Jesus does. He comes to provide the way for us to come to the Father. And again, we've talked about this a lot on the program, but it is as simple as calling out to Jesus. He is the way and the truth and life. And he says, nobody comes to me, so nobody's going to heaven without Jesus. If you think you are, sorry about your luck. You're not. Quit fighting against it. You can't fight God and win. So just surrender your life to Jesus. You say, well, I don't know if I understand Jesus. Well, I can't say I fully understand Jesus either, but he loves you and he wants you to be a part of this family. And all you got to do is just give your life to him. And when you do, just like you said, it may not change overnight, but you'll start to see the change and start to feel the change because there's something real going on. It's not hocus pocus.
Yeah. It's the big difference in a self-help book.
Yep.
And that.
Yep.
Self-help book, when you lay it down, you forget it pretty quick.
Yep.
Something else happens with the other.
Yep.
And it's in there.
The whole concept of a self-help book doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because you and yourself are looking for help and they're saying you have everything you need to fix yourself.
This is a good point.
But I'm
Jason.
already broken. So how is somebody that's broken going to fix this brokenness?
Wait a minute. I have never thought about what you just said. You buy a self-help book to help you.
Because
But
the
it's a
answer's there.
self-help book.
Because the answer's in you if you just knew the answer was in there.
This is really confusing.
Guess what? The answer is never in yourself. If it was in ourselves, we would find it. It's in another person.
There you go.
It's in Jesus.
Way to bring it back to church. Good talk, gentlemen. Good talk. This is a good day. I like this day.
About time for some coffee, isn't it?
It's time for coffee. I smell it brewing in there, so we're going to take a break, come back, play Inny or Outty as we lather up with caffeine. I don't know what that means exactly, but
Yeah, don't think about that one too long.
This episode of Mike the Baptist is being presented commercial-free for your enjoyment by Michael Jackson, licensed realtor in Middle Tennessee. Rather than have you bombarded by pleas to buy things, Michael Jackson, the realtor, wanted to sponsor today's program and allow you to simply enjoy the content rather than worry about somebody trying to sell you stuff. Oh sure, Michael Jackson, realtor, might help people buy and sell houses and land in Middle Tennessee, but he doesn't actually sell things directly. So technically, this is not a commercial to sell you anything at all. It's simply an announcement to you that you don't have to listen to commercials on this episode because Michael Jackson, the realtor with Finch Real Estate in White House, Tennessee, 615-957-5064, is sponsoring this commercial-free program. This in no way, of course, means that if you're wanting to shop for a house or sell one or some land, that you shouldn't contact Michael Jackson, the realtor, because you should. He's fair, he's helpful, knowledgeable about the real estate market, and he's fun to work with. Okay, I'm Michael Jackson, the realtor, Finch Real Estate. And this is a commercial because my work as a real estate agent helps me have the time and resources to produce these Mike the Baptist programs. So feel free to call me for any of your real estate needs. I'll help you out all I can. And I'll do my best to make buying and selling your house a good experience. 615-957-5064. I'm number 2. Everybody else claims to be number 1.
Hey everybody, it's time to play America's almost favoriteest new game show, Inny or Outty, where we challenge our guests to figure out if a phrase we give them is actually in the Bible or out of the Bible. Sharpen your wits, guest. You're about to be in the hot seat of Bible stuff, because you're the next contestant on Inny or Outty. Here's Mike.
order the
I like a pig with my breakfast.
No, listen.
Fried
you got
catfish.
to
I've
try
had
this.
that for breakfast at Cracker Barrel.
Fried catfish? Yeah, with breakfast. Eggs,
Yeah.
biscuits and gravy, hash
It's a little
brown.
different, but I mean, it still tastes good.
It's good. I'm going to use that yawn right there to open it up.
Thank you, Jason.
Another thrilling episode of Mike the Baptist, as Jason just
Demonstrated, yeah.
displayed. I couldn't come up with the right word there. Speaking of the right word,
We rarely find them.
We
Get all of
rarely-
your words right all of the time.
Yeah. Oh, wait. The word of the day is comfortable. Jason came. I like words. Someday I'm having a word in the dictionary. I'm just telling you. I'm not giving up.
Shrinkle's still out
Shrinkle.
there.
Shrinkle is. I'm still on the project, but now comfortable.
Yeah, it's
When you
the-
said
it's the
that,
combination of
something in my head
comfortable-
went ding.
It's the combination of comfortable
I'm
and
going to waste
comforter.
30 days in my head because you said comfortable. Hey, look, Inny or Outty is a very simple game. We're going to throw something out there, ask you, is it in the Bible or out? That's Inny or Outty. That's all we're going to say about that.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. I'm going to start.
All right.
I'm in the power seat right off the bat. Mine is very simple. It's probably not going to be as grand as I imagined it in my head earlier, which that happens a lot. Is the word vacuum in the Bible? Cue the spooky little music track.
Science says that nature abhors a vacuum.
It does?
That's what science says.
I've never heard science say that. Did you get that?
Like a brand of vacuum, like rainbow,
Like
like
Eureka?
rainbows in there.
Did you ever get a rainbow vacuum when you were younger?
Right?
Oh man, my aunt had
Is
one.
that the
Those things-
expensive ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
was
clean
awesome.
really well, but
Yeah.
Oh.
man, they're a mess to clean.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, they'll
lasts forever.
take your socks
Yeah.
off your feet
Yeah,
too.
and you can drive it. You can drive it to town.
You can't. I had no idea what was going to happen when I brought this up. The word vacuum.
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 Now, let me be clear. I have not looked up the Greek, which I want to.
We're going for the English transliteration of this, I do believe.
Yes, we're going
Is this
for
the
the
Message Bible or
No,
the
no, no,
Easy
New
to
Living
Read?
I stay
Translation,
away
Cotton
from
Patch
the.
Gospel.
Stay away from the message.
Vacuum. That sounds awfully scientific.
Cappuccino is in the message. Did you know that? Look it up.
Cappuccino?
Look it up.
Really?
Everything's in the message. And
Alright.
they took some liberties in the message. I'm just going to say.
They did use more common vernacular.
So vacuum.
My gut is saying no on this
Your
one.
gut is saying
My
no.
gut says no.
Okay. We have one. I like
Aren't
the
you going
gut
to use your
reactions.
Jackson? Aren't you going to use your Jackson? But if it is, I'd just like to go ahead
Well,
and say that
he's got to wait till
Right.
the conversation
I know, right?
flowers a little, and then he comes back. and
I'm just
says,
going to say no.
no.
I cannot think of a single place. I could not think of a single place that might be in. The only thing that's giving me pause is because it's you.
I don't know how to take that
Well,
exactly, but
you know, we never talked about the vacuum of space in the Book of John or anything that I can remember, or in Genesis, or
You know, in Isaiah, it talks about the earth is the circle of the earth is hung on nothingness, and that's kind of interesting.
wow, that is
There's a
interesting.
vacuum in space. I can't think of any
So
word.
how come the Bible has all these references to the Earth being spherical,
And we got idiots.
but
that
then
think
scientists said it was flat for a
it's,
long
because
time,
they didn't read their Bible.
and they
Because-
didn't want to take their ship that far because they would.
They have an
interesting.
inability to believe that somebody in their limited knowledge and understanding could be, inspired by God to write something that was beyond their ability.
Jason's got a lot of hand motions today.
Yes, but listen, he's so poetic sometimes with his language. It's like I'm listening to a great teacher.
It makes me feel comfortable.
Me too. But he's also the guy that said comfortable.
I can't think of a single place that
Hey,
that would be in
listen,
Scripture.
one of the most hilarious things you can do with your free time is listen to Mike the Baptist at 0.5 speed, and especially Jason. Because
Why is
Jason's,
that?
well, you just sound like you are hammered drunk. It is so funny. It's so fun. Well, all of them do, but again, if you haven't done that yet, take an afternoon and put it on 0.5, and you'll be in your living room floor rolling around.
Comfortable.
Vacuum is the word vacuum.
I think we're all out on this one.
Is it an
The
Outty?
only thing that's making me pause is
It's
because
just
I'm looking
me.
at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it had been any one of y'all, I'd have been like, no.
All right, so
I'm gonna go with no, just because I can't think of anything.
we're
So it's an
outies.
Outty. Okay, like I said,
You said it was an Outty?
no. I read this earlier, but then I didn't write it down. So would one of you all? My computer and my phone are both wrapped up, so I can't Google it myself. Would one of you all Google it? Just
So we're looking up the answer to
yes,
your
you're
Outy now?
actually, you're
This is
looking up the
another
answer
first in the-
to my own.
in your Outy.
And just give you a second.
The NIV has 0.
Okay.
The
Try the ESV,
ESV
the English Standard Version. Just see what happens if you try the English Standard Version.
ESV says 0.
Okay. Type in, is the word vacuum in the Bible? That's what I typed in. I may be setting myself for a miserable failure coming right up here in a second.
I'm not seeing it anywhere.
Okay, so I'm in a predicament because I actually found it earlier,
No, I'm not seeing
but I
it.
didn't write anything down. So
There's a lot of stuff talking about a God-shaped vacuum in our hearts, but there's no scripture that says that.
Oh well, wait. I know how to save myself, and you guys both. So y'all are saying Outty?
Outty.
Yes.
You're correct. It's not in the Bible.
Everybody's winning today.
What a great planet! I didn't realize you could do that. Okay,
Neither did we.
interesting. So what this means is you don't really have to look anything up. You just throw something out there, and then we'll work it out. Okay, so look, the good news is it was a win. The bad news is I did not read enough after I Googled that, and here again is the trouble with Google. Okay, so. Okay, Koontz, you're in the power seat now because I need to get out of this mess here.
All righty. So we're going to follow a pattern that our great pastor put out a while back.
That's the
Okay.
bad part when you do this. It
I'm
comes back.
always
Which
afraid
one
of
of these
following
is
a pattern.
not in the Bible?
Oh, okay.
And these are names.
All right.
So which one of these names is not in the Bible?
Okay.
Jennifer, Buzz,
Lightyear?
Drusilla,
I know Drusilla's in there.
or Amy? Jennifer, Buzz, Drusilla, Amy.
This is really good.
I know
This one's
Drusilla's in
entertaining.
there. I know Drusilla's in there.
It's just too crazy not to be in there.
No, I
is it?
know that's in there. I'm thinking of a particular passage of scripture.
My gut says Buzz ain't in there, but I can't imagine some Middle Easterner back then saying Buzz.
Amy,
But-
Jennifer, and Buzz are the 3 remaining, right?
Jennifer or Buzz would be my guess. Buzz is just hilarious. To think that they would have even said the word like that, Buzz.
Well, what if it says like the bees?
There's a town called, I think they pronounce it Booze, B-U-Z. Yes, Booze is in there.
Whoa!
Okay, so Drusilla and Booze
Whoa.
is in there. So it's down to Jennifer,
It's Jennifer.
and Amy.
My gut says Jennifer.
I was going Amy.
This is really good though, Koontz.
All eyes are on Jason.
Well, yeah. I mean, he knew Buzz was in the
awake.
Bible.
I'm going to say Amy. I think Amy.
That's
Amy is the Audi, is what you're
Amy
saying?
is the Outty.
Are both of y'all saying Amy? I kind of like Jennifer, but
What's
I'll
your-
go with
what's
you
your
guys. My gut is Jennifer, but I'm going to go
Jennifer Butt or Jennifer Butt?
no Buzz.
Easy now.
But where were we?
They were saying Amy.
Well, my gut says Jennifer, but I'm going to go with these guys. I'm going to go with them that Amy is not in the Bible.
EMI or AMY?
It's not Amy from church.
It's not
We
Amy.
know we all
it's
know
Amy.
it. We all know an Amy
Not
with an
Emmy.
EMI. Yeah, I guess
I think,
the
golly, I don't know. What do you...
I was
I'm
leaning
thinking
Amy because I
I'm
just
leaning
like
towards Amy.
I'll go with Amy with
too
you guys.
short.
I think we're wrong.
Jennifer
but
sounds like it could be, I don't know, a Greek name or something.
Greek.
I don't know. I'm just throwing
Sounds like
stuff
it'd be an Ohio name.
out. But I know Drusilla and
Booze.
I always pronounced it Booze in my head. But maybe that says
Buzz.
more about
It's more fun to say
what students make
Buzz,
them want to do.
isn't it? Amy sounds like Amy is the one that they're saying is not in there. You notice I said they.
They. Yes, we did catch that.
Thank you.
All right. Buzz, Genesis 22:21.
That was good, Jason. I'm impressed.
Drusilla, Acts 24.
yeah.
Amy, Ezra 2:57.
Oh,
Jennifer is not in the Bible.
the gut.
Ezra what?
Ezra
I'm
2:57.
gonna check that.
The gut. Here we go Googling
I
again.
know, right? Dang.
Yeah, Jennifer sounded too modern to me. Amy kind of does in a way, but what'd they say about old Amy there in Ezra? Just out of curiosity.
Ezra 2:7,
257.
257. I was like, okay.
Jennifer. Yeah, Jennifer just sounded too modern.
AMI.
Like
AMI.
Sally, you wouldn't expect Sally,
And
Jennifer.
it's a name?
And the sons of AMI.
Oh,
Betty.
Ami.
Betty, you
Ami.
wouldn't expect Betty. Is Betty in the Bible?
We'll have to check
Wilma.
that one next time.
I think
Interesting.
Amy, Amy is actually a guy's name in that passage.
It
That's
is.
the funny part.
Okay, so one win, one loss.
Yeah.
The win was accidental because I thought you were going to be wrong, but I didn't do my research properly. I'm glad we cleaned it up, though.
Were you looking at Luke 11, 24 through 28? That was one that I was seeing.
Well, I think what I did was, all right, I was driving when I looked it up. So,
It talks about a house being swept and put in order. A demon leaves and then comes back, and his house is swept in order.
fills
and
the
he
vacuum.
Fills the vacuum.
Yes,
See,
that's what I read.
I was almost right because I said EMI, it was AMI.
Yes.
So I was almost right.
Well, anyway, it was a good day. I mean, every time you learn something new about this, so I think it's fascinating. So I don't really know who won, who lost, but it was fun.
You won.
We'll tally it. I won.
You won.
Once.
It's all good.
We all won.
Ta-da.
We all get a participation trophy.
all
There we
did
go.
it.
Speaking of
Trophy served,
participation
everybody.
trophy,
All the way around.
That's right.
we'll take a break, come back, sing you a hymn, and wrap this one up.
Oh, wow. What a great contestant and a fine sport today on Inny or Outty, America's almost favorite new game show. Study up, future guest people. You're next in the hot seat for Inny or Outty.
Hey, folks, thanks for sticking with us this far, this long. If you have been, well, just thanks for sticking with us. If you've been listening or watching and you stayed around this long,
Bless you.
bless you. You must be very in a very more comfortable situation than many people have been who have gotten this far. Hey, look, well, I don't know. We end it with a hymn. We're going to sing you a hymn. This is number 36 in the Mike the Baptist hymnal. It's an old, kind of a feel-good hymn. There's nothing wrong with a feel-good hymn, is there?
Well, we needed one today because we lost on Inny or Outty with Amy.
With Amy.
So we
Poor
picked a
Amy.
hymn
Yes.
that's about a hymn. Well, it's about a her, but the Amy in the Bible is a hymn.
It's confusing.
So a hymn for a her that's really about a hymn.
I guess your participation in this hymn depends on your denomination.
Yeah.
This is deep. This is way too deep. We're going to sing this hymn, then we're going to get out of here. And thanks for sticking around with us. We'll tell you bye again here in just a second. I can see why you think you belong to me. I never tried to make you think or let you see one thing for yourself. But now you're off with someone else and I'm alone. You see, I thought that I might keep you for my own. Da 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 da. Amy, what you wanna do? I think I could stay with you for a while, maybe longer if I do.
If I do.
So, well, he explained it. We did that because of the Amy, Inny or Outty, and debacle. More debacles there, but okay. Look, thanks for staying with us. We'll see you next time on Mike the Baptist. Thanks to Jason Ricciardi,
Hodo Jones.
Brother Hodo Jones over there, and Buddy Koontz here on this side. I'm Mike the Baptist. We'll see you next time. Remember, folks, we're all just Christians.
Try not to cuss.
Do your best. Get a gold star.
Mike the Baptist.